Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back. This is Springboard at Home. We're on number 12. This afternoon, we have a couple of phenomenal leaders with us, as always. But today, we have some very special guests, both on the franchisor side of the business as well as the franchisee side. Our franchisee today is also a franchisor, and his operation is impressive, to say the least. I think he operates more than 150 locations here in DFW alone. We can confirm that here in a second. But we have Texas representing very strongly today. It's kind of funny because whenever you look at the franchise geography, there are a lot of really great headquarters and brands located here in Texas. But Zach Fishman and I became quite the franchise geographist this summer as we went across the country. We took the tour bus. I think it was 26 states. Franchisors.com sponsored that, which was really awesome. But it's really good to have so many great folks around us here in Texas, or really around me here in Texas. And that's franchise family and great brands. But we'll introduce today's guest here momentarily. Before we do that, I'm going to kick it over to Tony. We're going to have some top of the house remarks from Tony, Brad, and Lane, and then we will jump right in.
Sure. So I'll start with Switchboard. If you don't know what it is, it's our employment resource site for folks specifically in the franchise space. And we currently have over 40 jobs and over 125 resumes. So I would just recommend checking it frequently because jobs do change and become available all the time. So just spread the word, and I would say update it as much as you can. And thank you. And thanks to everyone for tuning into these. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony. Are we going to put up our new logo, or are we not putting it up yet?
We'll try to share it by the end of the call, by the bottom of the hour. Go ahead, Brad.
Tony just sent over our Springboard coming up, and I love the new logo because, as most of you know, it's going virtual. And hopefully in the near future, we're going to be able to get out there again. But as I mentioned last week, Philadelphia's kind of locked our hands together now that they got COVID in their baseball park. Not many other people are going to Philadelphia. But, you know, as we've always done with Springboard, there's so many wonderful emerging franchise organizations out there, always looking to learn. And, you know, talking to all the guests we've had, and Tabbassum and Mary are phenomenal. And they're going to try to give you all the ideas because they've been through everything. But as we do it, we're looking to really, you know, it's hard not to do it because so much of what we've always done for Springboard is try to make it fun, the networking, the talking, and getting to know people, and the mentoring of people that have met. And not only is it a fun thing, but it's so informative. We try to do it with gaming. It's tough to do on virtual, but we're going to try to do our best. And if Tony can put up the new logo, because I love it with the satellite thing out there. So we're like I said, we're just trying to make it a little different. But it will be on the same dates what we do in September. So be watching out for it, and Tony will be getting that out soon. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lane.
Yeah, so I was going to say, we've been compiling lists, and, you know, the object is to try to do something that looks different cosmetically and functionally and from a fun perspective. And so we have some amazing ideas. Brad actually has thought of an interesting way to leverage technology to create some semblance of the kind of relationships that we create at Springboard. But to the extent that any of you all have any kind of great success stories, or have any, you know, thing that you're willing to share, or portion of this experience, or where you're at, or something that is you think would help other or emerging franchisors, this is the time to send me a text, send me an email, and make sure we get you on the program. But we're excited for the opportunity to be able to be with folks at late September. We think that's going to be a monumental time or milestone in terms of where we are today. Hopefully in Philadelphia it will be, because we're not much beyond where we were in February. We still have no indoor dining period. We have no no gatherings more than 75 people, I think, through next February. So it's very, you know, frustrating here. But anyway, so we're looking for great ideas. Write me, write Tony, as always. Make sure to get you on. We distinguish our programs by having iconic people that you recognize and that you know, and that have great experience and are willing to share, and not, you know, cannibalizing programs with other content. So just sort of like we've been doing here, and we're blessed that I don't want to talk for another minute of their time. So Rob, let me turn it back to you. And let's hear from Mary and Tabbassum, who I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, and the dates on that, by the way, September 21st through 23rd, is that correct, Tony?
Yes, correct.
Got it. So mark your calendars, everybody. But by way of formal introduction, these two guests definitely don't really need an introduction, but we have Mary Kennedy Thompson. She's the Chief Operating Officer of Neighborly Brands. I'm sure everybody in the audience is familiar with Neighborly Brands. We'll hear a thumbnail on some of them, because if I were to list them out, it would take me a minute or two here. And then we also have Tabbassum Mumtaz. Tabbassum is rocking in the promotional photo. He had his pre-COVID look. Now he has his post-COVID look with the Grizzly. We're both here, or they're both here in Texas. But guys, welcome to Springboard at Home, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Ryan.
So Tabbassum, we'll start off with you. Just for context into who you are, give a little bit of a thumbnail on your background, where you come from and your story, and how you got to where you're at today.
Ryan, let me talk about your background first. Right behind you, I have 4 locations. So I was trying to figure it out. We have 2 KFCs I can see from here, and 3 Pizza Huts right behind you, and also 2 7-Elevens. So just by sitting here looking at your background, we have 7 to 8 locations that we can see. So again, I'm in Lane's Point, Texas. Texas has been a great blessing to us, not only because it's a right to work state, but it has given us several opportunities. Today, we have around 430 units, mostly KFCs, Pizza Huts, Taco Bells, and 7-Elevens. And I would say 6 major states where we have a majority of our stores, and another 5 states which are neighboring states. Again, started as a cook with Wendy's and Long John Silver's in '93. So 51 now. So again, thank God, still rocking, following Lane's footsteps. Cannot run as fast as he can, but joined it. So I think the way I started in the restaurant industry was someone told me that if you don't want to die of hunger, get into the restaurant industry, at least you're going to get free food. So from there on, it's just no looking back. I would say, first concept that we bought, or first restaurant that we bought, was Wendy's. I was used to work in one of the Wendy's that I was fortunate enough to be a partner, and then became a franchisee. And then also Long John Silver's, where I started as a cook as well. Today we, again, became a franchisee of Wendy's, and then also ended up owning the entire Long John Silver's brand with some other friends. So today, 460, close to 460 units that we own and operate, but also we own and operate the entire Long John Silver's brand with some other partners, both domestic and international.
Beautiful. Tab, I will also note that I'm probably one of your top customers at those 2 7-Elevens that you mentioned. I use the 7-Eleven Go app probably on a daily basis, but that's awesome. Mary, what about yourself? Give us a thumbnail on your background and where you're at today.
Well, Ryan, like Tab, I started in franchising as a franchisee first. I was a Marine Corps officer, and both my husband and I decided we wanted to get out so we could settle down somewhere and raise our children. And we were looking for ways to do that. And I was a sales rep and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And my husband came home with a little brochure from a company back then called Cookie Bouquet. And on the back of it had 3 magic words for franchising information. I remember leafing through it and saying, oh man, these cookies are so cool. I could sell these all day long. I was a sales rep, I knew how to sell, but I don't know how to make them. I don't know what to do. But man, it'd be great if I knew that. And that's when I saw those 3 magical words. And so I was way before the internet. I sent away for a package, and my husband came home from work one day and I had all the packages laid out on the kitchen table. And I said, this is what I want to do. And God bless that man, because he didn't say, what are you thinking and how on earth are we going to do it? He said, when do you want to do it? And so I never looked back. And I was a multi-unit franchisee. And while I was our whole plan was to buy them, build them, sell them. And when we got ready to sell them, the franchisor called me and said, I'd like you to come work for us. We want to build a field program and we'd like you to lead that. And I said, I can't go work for the dark side. And she said, I mailed you a ticket, come out and talk to me. You can name your title, tell me what you want to do. And so my first title was shop facilitator. And in the first year I did 130 site visits. And I wanted to go back and have my businesses back because I had learned so much being out in the field with the franchisees and learning from them. It made me very excited about where the opportunities were. And I pretty much did every job in that business until I was president. And when I was president of Cookies by Design, I kept running into this company called Dwar Group. We're now called Neighborly. And everyone I met was somebody remarkable. And it was somebody who had these set of values, we call it living rich with respect, integrity, customer focus, and having fun in the process. And Mike Bidwell, who was the president at the time, he reached out to me and said, we've got this brand called Mr. Rooter. It's our largest brand, and we think we'd like you to lead it. And I said, I don't know anything about plumbing. And he said, you know, business is business is business. He says, you know franchising and you know business. And I never have looked back. And you know, Dwar Group became Neighborly. I served as the president of Mr. Rooter for 9 years. And when I came into Dwar Group, we had 6 brands. Today we have 25 brands. 15 of those are in North America. And we're in the service business. So we're in the repair, maintain, and enhance people's homes and properties. And our vision is to be so remarkable, we become a beloved household name. That's really where we focus. And about 5 years ago, I was promoted to be chief operating officer in the parent company. All the North American brands roll up to me. And I love leading leaders. You know, there's 4 levels of leadership: lead self, lead others, lead leaders, lead organizations. And I've found that the leading leaders has been something that has really touched my heart and soul.
Love it. And you're a leader of leaders and you do a phenomenal job at it. Just for context, both of you guys, you have been open throughout the whole pandemic. Is that correct? Mary, you guys have been relatively open?
Mostly, yes.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the mix of the brands, maybe some of the brands that were a little harder hit. I think some have done very well throughout the pandemic just because of changing, people being in their homes and all the rest. But talk a little bit about that mix and what you've seen. So
in our brands, we have brands like Molly Maid, Mr. Rooter, Window Genie, Mosquito Joe, as an example. You name something that's probably been done in your home, we probably have a brand that does it. And so from starting at the Molly Maid brand, you know, we're going into people's homes. If you talk about getting as personal as it gets, going into someone's home when people are worried that you might be bringing disease into their home, it became very, very important. We had to spend a lot of time on processes and procedures about what's the difference between sanitizing and disinfecting, and what are we touching and what are we not touching, and what does the homeowner know that we touch. It's not just what we are touching and not touching, but what we are telling them that we're, you know, showing them that we're touching. So Molly Maid was the hardest hit, because when you think about the difference between Molly Maid and Mr. Rooter, if you have water falling down from your ceiling, you're going to have someone in your home. You're just going to, I'm going to have to do it. But you might say, I can put off having someone in my home to clean. And so we saw that our Molly Maid brand be harder hit in that respect. But then on the other end of the spectrum, we have Mosquito Joe, and they do mosquito control. And if you think about vector-borne diseases, all these parents and families were home and they wanted their children to play in the yard. And the last thing they want to do is worry about their children getting sick from a mosquito bite, you know, from Zika or anything else. And so we saw that brand actually get lifted through the pandemic and through this COVID scare. And I say the word scare because there's a lot of fear out there from a lot of people. So that's where both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and then Tab, for you, you've been open throughout. I don't think you've had to close any locations. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But have you struggled in areas compared to others, or how has business been for you guys? Just for context, and then we'll jump into some of the details.
Yeah, so I think on our KFC, Taco Bell, KFC, Pizza Hut side, we we saw a little soft sales in the beginning, so somewhere around 25 to 30, not little, but a lot. For the first 2-3 weeks, we were down big time. Taco Bell, because of the clientele we have, younger kids, parents not letting them go out, schools not there, it was affected in the beginning as well. And then also the fourth meal was not there at all, so we were closing early, the dining rooms. And it was a little tough for Taco Bell side in the beginning, but slowly and gradually, I think it moved up. In another 2-3 weeks, we saw more drive-through sales from all our brands. Of course, I mean, Pizza Hut, it was all delivery. We've been up 30% year over year for the last 14 straight weeks on the Pizza Hut side. And on the KFC side, we are up somewhere around 12 to 13%. Transactions pretty much flat though, because we're looking at higher check averages. We bundled some of the package deals, and that has helped us a lot. So again, on the 7-Eleven on the other side, 7-Eleven, we saw some sales decline in the beginning. For the first 2 to 4 weeks, we were down, but slowly and gradually that also started to come back up. So now, all our brands, thank God, are doing very well.
So a few of the concepts, I know Taco Bell adapted their menu where they got rid of some items. Did you find that dramatically helped your organization with the less, with less in the kitchen and stuff like that?
Very, very helpful. Easier for the customers to make decisions, faster for the speed on the drive-through, easier to make things as you come into the drive-through or the dining room. It's cook to order kind of a thing, or prep to order. So it's a lot easier. The more simplified menu, the more happier the customer, lesser mistakes we make. So very helpful.
Mary, as you reflect back over the past few months, I don't know, what are we going on here? 4 months of this, maybe more. But as you reflect back, what were some of the top things that you focused on and that maybe kind of early stage and throughout this, but what are some of those top things that you really brought the team together and rallied behind and supported the franchisees with?
When this first started hitting, it felt like a black and white horror movie, trying to figure out what was going on and what was around the next corner. And we really boiled it down to, there were 3 places that we really wanted to keep our focus. We wanted to help our franchise owners stay liquid, because having as much cash on hand to ride it out, because we don't know how long this was going to last, was number 1. Next, we wanted to make sure that we seized the moment. And that seizing the moment is not taking advantage of someone or something because something's happening. It's looking for the opportunities and finding what is happening and where do we need, I've never heard the word pivot so much in my whole life as I have through this period, but where do we pivot and where do we need to put our focus? And then lastly is leading through fear. There was a lot of fear that was going on, and we started in these conversations with our leaders, with our franchise owners. I remember when the recession hit, in 7 and 8, and we were all just, I was brand new president of Mr. Rooter. I was like 3 months in the job, and I was pretty worried about how to communicate to the franchise owners and what to say to them. And I called my dad because he was a 3-time combat veteran, and I figured he probably had some good advice for me. And I said, Dad, I'm trying to figure out what I need to say and what I need to do. And I don't want to show fear as a leader. I want to lead them through it. And he says, you know what to do. And I said, no, I don't know what to do. That's why I'm calling you. And he said, you're supposed to, as a leader, whistle in the dark. He said, whistle often, whistle loud, let them follow you, walk towards the light so that when you get to the light, they will be with you. And so we started having these conversations about what does whistling in the dark look like and sound like, and everything from town hall meetings, many town hall meetings, to a lot of training, to videos from Mike Bidwell, our CEO, messages from our brand presidents to their franchise owners, all the way across the board. So those were the 3 areas that we really focused on.
I love that picture that you painted with the whistle in the dark kind of analogy, and it's very accurate because we may not have all the answers, but you have to walk towards the light. Tab, for you, I know that I want to switch over to the topic of technology, because I know that you have an interesting a couple of interesting things that you did as it relates to technology, not necessarily consumer facing, but how did you, as you were navigating all of this, how did you use technology to help you guys streamline operations and help you kind of work through this?
I think from the store level, if you look at it, most of the orders started coming online through the phones. So utilization of the technology, I think all the brands were focused on having more number of phones in the stores, focusing on creating more speed on our app, how to make sure that we are connected to our customers, especially the younger ones, to make sure that they are not spending a lot of time on placing an order, so simplifying that for them on that. Going back to the back end, not reducing labor, but also understanding that how do we make sure that from the main system, from our POSs to pulling every single thing to our main sub hub, and also to make sure that all our programs are aligned directly to our Sage program. So we were able to get every single line item that we need. And imagine on 7-Eleven itself, like thousands of SKUs, pulling that all in our accounting program. It was very, very nicely done. So again, that helps us a lot to expedite our services in terms of going back to the field, giving them a 7-day close. What we also did was converted our payroll. We were using outside company to do payroll, but we're doing payroll in-house as well. So I think utilizing our own IT department to make sure that making it easy for our team to create our own BI, business intelligence program. So for the operators, making sure that the business based on their preferences is on the palm the minute they wake up, how exactly they need to look at their days, how exactly they need to look at their schedules for the week, and so on. So definitely helped us a lot on that.
Yeah, Mary, I'll ask you the same question kind of on the technology side in a second, but I realized I didn't give Tab an opportunity to talk about kind of navigating the waters, just big picture, looking back and reflecting back. And Tab, I think one of the main things that emerged for you is a united team. But what were your focuses just as you're navigating through all of this, and what really emerged as the most important for you?
I think like Mary said, right, connecting with their franchisees. In our case, and I, of course, am a street guy, so my examples are street examples. So from oh shit scenario to game on scenario, it was all from our team. And excuse me, Mary, on communicating the oh shit words and all that, but again, I mean, and all that was from the team. We got so much more united that team came to us and talked about, like, would you like us to take a cut on our salaries? Would you like us to work more hours? Would you like us to travel more? Would you like us to do some more? I mean, it was an unbelievable experience. So when the time gets tough, I mean, this team just was all over. So we looked at looking at different aspects, such as communicating with our lenders, communicating with our landlords, communicating with the franchisor in the cases where we are the franchisee, communicating with our franchisees, like Mary said, on a LGS side, where we are the franchisors, giving breaks on royalties on the other side, making sure that deferred royalties given by Yum to be utilized. Going back to the people side, we did not cut any salaries of any employees, but we did cut our fat. We did reduce the number of folks that we knew that we were not using. And we also replaced some of our leaders with the youngsters that we know that they were the second in command. And I mean, again, hungry to win, hungry to show. And today, I think with the whole team that we were able to make, we're not behind on any rent. We are not utilizing any deferred royalties on the franchise side. We are also making sure that we are building stores, and we are developing and also, doing our remodels. So we started building new stores. By the end of this year, we're going to have 3 more brand new units, and I think another 30 remodel units that we are starting to do next month onwards, which is August.
Nice. Mary, whenever you look at the topic of technology, and this is probably kind of tough because you have so many brands, but you know, you mentioned that the word pivot has been kind of overly used. A lot of brands were forced to implement projects that would normally take 6 months or a year and fast track it and get it out in weeks or a month or 2 months. Was there anything that you guys did or were kind of not necessarily forced, but had to innovate on the technology side? Does anything come to mind for you?
Well, what I think about technology, it was like 10 years of testing done in 10 weeks. Because, you know, we had to move within a 24-hour period, we moved everybody to teleworking, for example. And so we had this you know, we've been using Ring Central, which is powered by Zoom, for probably almost 3 years now. And you'd think that we knew how to use Ring Central. We had Teams, we had Microsoft Teams, and it had been available to us for quite a bit of time. But it's not that you have the technology, it's how you're using the technology. And I remember the first like month, I would get up and I'd be sore because I had sat for like 12 hours hardly without moving. And because you're just sitting here in front of the screen trying to talk to as many people as possible. So what we started learning was you can't just take, there was a good article I read just a couple of days ago on the different levels of teleworking. And the first level is kind of, you just say, yeah, if you want to, you can do it. The second level is you're going to, you take what you had and you move it, you know, onto this platform. The third level is when you start really changing up how you're doing it. You can't, you know, we had all these meetings, we had to move to virtual, and we had this regional meeting and we're like, okay, we're gonna do this regional meeting, but it doesn't work that way now. So we had to change how we were using the technology. And, you know, if you have 500 people and we did on an event, you can't have everyone has to be muted. Like this group is muted. How could we interact with them? How could we train with them using the technology and making it extremely interactive and making it tighter? Because you cannot spend 6 hours talking to somebody this way. You have them for like 30 minutes. And so we had to change that part.
Yeah, and like you mentioned with the regional meetings, you always normally have regional meetings, but it's kind of like the light bulb moment of, well, actually, we don't have to have a regional meeting because we're not limited by the constraint of people being there. So we can actually broadcast this much, much wider. And it takes an event like this to be able to realize that there's probably a lot of different things and different ways that you can do things better, not how they've always done, and opportunities get opened up. Brad and Lane, I'll ask if you guys have any questions. You can hop in. We'll pivot over to overuse that word that's been overused, to marketing from a marketing perspective. So Tab, I'll start with you. How have you approached your messaging and your marketing strategies? And are there any tactics that you have used to be able to be more effective during this time from a marketing perspective, whether it's grassroots, whether it's digital, or all the above?
So I think with all the new situation we are all getting into, we're looking at a lot of the games the kids are playing, promoting ourselves into different digital marketing as well. But on top of that, staying connected with the community, I think has helped us a lot. So approaching a lot of communities where we both are, Ryan. I mean, you know, Plano is one of the cities that we are reaching out to. We just had a conversation this Sunday with the mayor, talked about painting some of the water towers, approaching and looking at things totally with a different view. I think in Texas, as you know, the biggest billboards are those water towers. So we're looking at perhaps at least getting 5 or 6 of them by the end of the year. Talking about digital, so we're looking at what exactly our customers are more involved in. So focus on that. Other than that, I mean, you know, TRPs are always there with the larger brands. Both Pizza Hut and KFC is back on pretty much every week on major channels. We're also now try to do the same with 7-Eleven as well. So more focused locally rather than national. And I think that has been helpful a lot to us.
Mary, what about you, marketing strategy? Any tactics or anything come top of mind that have been more successful? I know that you're the chief operating officer, but from a marketing message and marketing strategy component, anything come to mind?
Well, you know, I said the most used word I've heard is pivot. The second most used word I've heard is contactless. And everybody wants a contactless experience. Now we're in their home. How do you do a contactless experience? You know, for brands that might do estimates that need to come out, how can we do it in a way that we don't have to be in person or don't have to see them? So we did some pivoting of our marketing to show where we could be contactless and where we could make it easier for the customer. And also our marketing focused a lot on the processes and steps that we were taking, that our franchise owners were taking with their service professionals, so that they knew that that service professional who was coming into their home was well-trained, well-armed, well-equipped with PPE, wearing all the right equipment, that they were going to keep their family as safe as possible. And then lastly, one of the tactics we did is and it's funny because we really should have been doing this tactic all along, but it took COVID to make us, you know, when we talk about seizing the moment to think about it, is where we could pair brands together where it made sense. As an example, Mosquito Joe and Ground Skies, if you want to keep mosquitoes down in your yard, you better make sure you have your grass cut regularly and properly so that they're not living within the water that is there in that yard. And so when we started putting the brands together and bringing those brand presidents together and looking for ways where we could put a message out that we could do both of those, it gave us a lot of lift.
For the folks in the audience that don't have a parent company and they don't have the luxury of having multiple brands under one umbrella, do you think there's opportunities for brands completely separately owned to do partnerships and explore things of that nature?
Well, I think that when there are things like pandemics and recessions, that's when you find new alliances and you look for places. You know, there was an article out just recently about in franchising why it matters to sometimes have those umbrella companies. But if you don't have one, then go look for where does it make sense. You know, what Tab does is so brilliant because he has all these different companies that he can do an alliance together for. When I was a franchisee, I did an alliance with a flower shop because we delivered cookie bouquets, they delivered flowers. Well, sometimes everyone doesn't want a flower, they don't want a cookie. You'd think that we were opposed but and against each other, but when we worked together, we brought business to each other. So I would encourage those brands to look for where is a business that would align with what they're doing.
The most important thing, and we kind of talk about, you know, everyone's pivoting right now, but one thing that has not changed with both your systems, and I'm going to use that with Tab and Mary, is trust. And that's such a big portion about your franchisees trust you, your customers are going to trust you. You know, Tab talked about his team came to him and says, yes, we will be there because I trust what you're doing for the long term. And I know, you know, everything you guys have done at Neighborly, Mary, has to do with word of trust. You guys want to both kind of talk about it, even though, you know, even though we're in the middle of a pandemic, the trust is not leaving because of what you guys have built up in the past. You want to start, Mary?
Oh, certainly. I was leaving room for Tab to speak up first. You know, we use Franchise Business Review to do surveys, and we survey twice a year. We do a spring and a fall survey. And I remember we had our spring survey coming up, and we had a lot of conversation about, oh, do we want to do the survey? What if it comes off terrible? Because look at everything that's coming on. And we decided, no, we survey so we understand what we're doing well and what we're not doing well, so that we could trust it. You know, there's four, you know, and Speed of Trust talks about this, the 4 pillars to credibility: integrity, intention, capability, and results. To build trust, you got to have all 4 of those. And so the survey tells us where we might be missing on some of that. Our surveys came back about a month ago, and we had almost a doubling of the improvement of what our franchise owners said about satisfaction. which we were glad to see. I think that trust, though, was built long ago, so that when you call and say, I know you're scared and you got this going on, let's talk about what we're going to do. Like, for instance, we needed all our franchise owners to apply for triple P loans and EIDL loans and the Canadian financial packages, relief packages. We needed them to do that. We needed them to trust us, to listen and let us help them walk through what they needed to think about and do on that.
Very, very well said, and thank you for taking the lead on this. But also, I think going back to the basics, on the employee side, on the recruiting side, we have a very simple philosophy. We ask our people, would you trust this trainer with your kids? Would you trust your kids with this trainer? So if you're going to hire your kids and let them be represented by this trainer, would you do that? And if the answer is yes, then absolutely that trainer is a keeper, that individual that you are putting, or an RGM, or a area coach or district manager, whatever you want to call it. So from that onwards, same thing, would you trust this product to be eaten by your parents? Would you trust this product to be eaten by your customer? So if you're not going to be able to feed this product to your customer, to your parents, or to your kids, don't freaking feed this product to the customers. So again, trust towards employees, trusting with your own family. If you cannot trust them to train them or be with them, then don't hire them. Don't let them waste your time and waste your customers' time. Same thing with the product. So going back with that, I think our customers trust us, or I would say test us every single day. And like Mary said, I mean, all these surveys, all these customer compliments and complaints are always there to make sure that we are on top of it, communicating with them. Again, I mean, our teams are working on the product availability, making sure the customer satisfaction is there, making sure at the end of the day, we are serving hot food hot and cold food cold when it comes to the food service. But again, I mean, I think the legacy brands, the beauty is people do trust us. Some areas we lack on speed, and some areas we lack on availability. So with this pandemic, I think it has given us a great opportunity to work on our weaknesses, and the way we are seeing sales and also the transaction counts coming back up. We know that, I mean, we're getting better and better every day. One thing I do want to share on the marketing side, where I, based on the basics, was from, I think one of the key that Ryan, we looked at was the training as well. Retraining our team helped us a lot. So even by training our frontline folks, talking about, hey, would you like to take a family meal or a bucket to your family? On the Pizza Hut side, would you like to order like a family box? Same thing for the Taco Bell side. So I think that has helped us a lot increase our check average, and basic things on the marketing has literally helped simplifying our menu as well. So not to deviate from the question, but I just wanted to add to that.
Oh, that's a
Let me jump
very
in.
powerful insight. Go ahead, Lane.
So, hey, so Tab, I didn't ask you this the other day. I don't think I've ever asked you, and I've always wondered it. You know, we always, you know, your passion, we're drawn to your passion, Brad. You're a person that Brad and I look up to and idolize in many ways. Tell me what it's like. You said, because I was transcribing from your intro, did you work for Long John Silver's as one of your first jobs in food service?
Long John's and KFC, Long John's and Wendy's as my first job.
And how old were you?
24.
No, and that's when you first worked for Long John Silver's, is when you were 44 or when you were a kid?
24.
24, okay.
44.
What did it feel like in your mid-40s?
7 years ago.
Well, that's what I thought maybe you were, I wanted to get the dates right. Because I thought, all right, shut up, everybody. So I was trying to, because I was thinking as you were talking, how cool it must have been 20 years later to not only have lots of units and maybe the most successful units and have figured the brand out, but to own the franchisor. I just was wondering if you could just describe that. We're like emotional people. We like to ride the roller coasters up and down. What was that like? And did you care about it? Was it something you always wanted? Was it cool to end up with?
Oh, you know, I think I still feel like a cook. I tell you, I mean, I know your dad is a big fan of cars. I enjoy cars. whatever car I'm driving, even if I'm driving a Ghost or a Phantom, right, I still look like a chauffeur. So whether I'm a full side or a back seat, I mean, it doesn't really matter. But I only say it because the mind and heart still thinks like a cook. That does not change. And I tell this to a lot of franchisees and a lot of peers of mine, a lot of franchisors as well. Like, look, when we wanted to be or become the first unit franchisee, when we wanted to be approved as a franchisee for any brand, and we only have one restaurant or one business that we wanted to become a franchisee, we do everything to make sure we kiss the franchisor's butt. Excuse me on saying that. And Mary, that would be the second word you can use. Third word. But again, I mean, we change our attitudes when we become 500 unit franchisees. I still think the same way. I think the franchisors are there because they are franchisors. If I was that smart, I would have been opening my own shack and I would have had thousands of units on that. So I utilized somebody else's intelligence. They invented the wheel. I followed it. I multiplied it based and with the help of the franchisor. So to me, having that relationship of the franchisee and the franchisor is humongous. So from the cook to having hundreds of units owned, I still think like that. I, honest to God, want to make sure that the fellow franchisees have the same understanding of staying humble, staying grounded. Because at the end of the day, you got to go to the ground anyways. I mean, so stay humble, stay grounded, and learn more from the franchisor. Where you can teach them, where you can work with them, step up, raise your hand, raise your voice, and communicate with them so that it becomes one team. Unless the brand is not going anywhere, neither the ZOR or the Z is going anywhere. So to answer your question, boss, I still think the same.
I'm going to take
You know what's
that.
interesting is on the flip side of that, on the franchisor side, I like it when leaders have been franchisees before, because I think it gives them an understanding and a feeling. That's why Tab's probably such a great franchisor as well, because he understands it from the franchise owner point of view. And so we have a number of our leaders, starting at our CEO, who have been franchisees before. And I think it gives you a different outlook.
Mary, I will have to say one thing. I'm sure Lane and I both thought the same thing. I was amused that you thought becoming a franchisor was going to the dark side. That's what everyone says about suppliers.
Yeah.
Mary,
Yeah.
did you ever imagine, I'm sure your dad and everyone who knew you would go places, but did you ever imagine when you were selling cookies that you could be in the position that you are now, or that those innate abilities that you had that got you before pre-cookies would get you to this amazing position? I'm so proud of you, but did you know it was going to happen or not?
Never in my wildest dreams. So when I was a little girl and I didn't like something my parents were doing, I said I was going to run away from home. And my dad said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to go wrap presents at the local department store." So my parents remind me every day that I wanted to be a present wrapper. That was my my big thing. I used to, when my husband and I were in the Marine Corps, we would drive around and we'd say, "What do you think all these civilians do?" I'm like, "I don't know, but it must be something good because there's a lot of nice houses out there." And I never in my wildest dreams thought that. I oftentimes tell people there is a fantastic opportunity on the career path of franchising, and you get to learn so much about business. And when I was a franchisee, I couldn't have done it without the franchisor. They taught me about profit and loss statements and cash flow break even and all the things I needed to know to be successful. That was like this quick start for me that got me going. And every step of the way, I've been like, oh, I don't think it could get any better or any bigger. I loved being a franchise owner. I loved being a business coach. I loved being a brand president. Each job I've done is just, for me, it's a labor of love, and that we get to help people reach their dreams. It doesn't get any better than that.
That's so cool. So
Yeah.
I have a question, but one more, Ryan. You guys got any good mask stories? Come on, you got to have some people to drive through.
You know, I grew
Karens.
I grew beard, so my mom just says that just pull it up a little. You don't need a mask.
I mean, customer-wise, not your. I mean, I think we all are uncomfortable with it, but I wondered, no good customer stories out Ryan's window of folks who are less than cooperative with local
I actually have. I have one. I have a bone to pick with you, Tab. So I had COVID very early on. I was one of the first people in Texas that tested positive for COVID-19. And I went to one of your locations right here behind my place, and I forgot my mask because I had it and I had the antibodies and I was good, and they wouldn't serve me, which is actually I think it's a good thing because it's a social responsibility to protect others. But that's my mask story with Tab's location.
So
I would give one.
Sorry, Mary, go ahead.
No, you first, sir.
No. So I would tell you it was not because they were worried about the 6 foot or anything else. They were only worried about the fines. As the freaking city of Dallas is. That was good.
Oh, so that's why you were hanging with the mayor the other day.
There you go. Sorry, Mary. Go ahead, please.
I would give a word of caution to franchisors out there. Masks that your people are wearing are just an extension of the uniform and the representation of the brand. And one of the things we've had to do is say, this is what the mask can look like. And this is what you cannot, because people are using masks as a form of expression, which is lovely, but it's not lovely when I have someone going in someone's home wearing an expression that I wouldn't let them wear on their uniform. So I would encourage people to be thick, because we're just starting to really see that we had to put those standards in place to say it will only be this type of mask or this way.
Yeah. Another topic, Tab, you mentioned, and I hope it's okay that I'm calling you Tab, I'm shortening it, but you mentioned that you mentioned employee recruitment. I thought it was a really excellent insight, a couple insights that you had there, going back to the marketing piece with the retraining and going back to your philosophy on how you recruit people with the analogy that you use. There's probably no better barometer for a good training and recruiting person than if you'll spend time with their kids. But when you look at recruitment, what are you seeing on the front lines, and how is the maintaining the staff? Is it easier because there's more people available in the labor market? Is it tougher? What is that looking like for you?
Well, I think the reality is while they were getting some of the unemployment checks, it was not easy because people were thinking and calculating, because they're all smart people. So they're looking at getting more dollars on the unemployment check, why to go work. Now that has ended, we are seeing people coming in to apply more. Also, we were struggling on the driver end, because the volumes have picked up so much. It was becoming a challenge for us to hire drivers, especially with the ones our criteria is to make sure that they're clean records and all that stuff. So that was we were having a little trouble on that. But again, I mean, with having no dining rooms open and just drive-through, so we did not have huge problems on our KFCs and Taco Bell sides. Whereas versus Pizza Hut side, we did struggle a little bit on the driver side. Now we are back to normal and having a good bench.
Mary, anything that you would add to that for your businesses with regards to technicians, maybe in some of the businesses that saw more demand and got lift? Any challenges on the recruitment side or any insights?
Oh, first I would say an amen to what Tab said. The unemployment payments, our franchise owners have reported that it's been a lot tougher to find people because they're making more money sitting at home. So that's something I think is important to all of us on this call and we need to pay attention to. But secondly, there's the fear factor, because we're going into people's homes. And so, and anyone who's an essential worker, they see themselves as being on the front line, and they rightfully do. And I had someone ask me, what do I say to someone when they say, I'm afraid to go in a home? I said, well, what do you say to them when you ask them to get in a car and go to someone's home? Because, car accidents rank pretty high up there in, deaths in the United States. They said, well, I tell them to get in the car. I said, well, why aren't you afraid for them? Like, well, they have a seatbelt and they drive on the correct side of the road. And I said, do you tell them to drive safely? Yes. So part of that fear is, what are the processes that are in place that will protect your team member, your associate, from that problem? Everything from the proper PPE to, are you you sending them text messages reminding them to wash their hands? Are you giving them the tools they need to do that? And we made sure those processes were in place, and then helping the leaders understand how to share that, and not to make light of it, because it is scary. But driving can be scary too if you don't have the rules and you don't have the right equipment and the right processes.
Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, in the same advice that you gave on the marketing side, basically marketing what you're doing to keep people safe internally, that's important as well, with the employees that you're taking that seriously and all the rest. Very briefly, franchise sales. It seems as if you guys are plugging away, and it's in some of your businesses that looks good for growth. Are you tackling that full on franchise sales wise, franchise development?
Absolutely. Anyone in franchising knows that during recessions, actually, your development has lots of opportunities, because there's all those white collar refugees that want to control their own destiny. And if you think about, millennials, there's been a lot of talk about the millennials aren't risk takers, and they don't want to. I love millennials, by the way, that they don't want to take the risk to be an owner of anything. And then they thought they were safe in their jobs, and then this pandemic hit, and they weren't an essential worker, and they're not safe anymore. And I believe they're going to flock to franchising, because franchising is a way to control your own destiny. Yet you have everything that Tab talked about, and I've shared as well, is that you have this ground rules, these things to follow. You can get a fast start. You have somebody else that's teaching you how to do it. And so this is I heard someone say the other day that this event is the biggest event in the world since World War II. It's going to change everything we do. And millennials are forever changed by this. And so we should be on the development side, and we have been on a neighborly side. We are actively reaching out and looking for those people who want to control their own destiny, and who are looking for a safer option for doing that.
Yeah. Tab, I'm sure if we have 200 people on this call, franchisors wise, there's 201 that would love for you to be a franchisee in their system. And then you also have Long John's, and you're the franchisor. What is your mindset as you're kind of looking at the state of the union now? Do you have your eye towards growth? You mentioned you're open a few stores. You have 30 remodels on the docket. What are you looking at as you look to the future?
Absolute growth. I mean, I think looking at acquisitions, we're looking at, on the franchise side, we're definitely looking at acquisitions. I, by the way, love Mr. Reuter. And I tell you, though, the Dallas-Fort Worth market at one time was available. And I have approached Dwyer Group at the time for that as well. So not making and doing publicity for Mary, but I know the
Thank you.
respect that I have for the Dwyer Group, for Mary and for Dina and for the rest of the team. It has been an amazing friendship and partnership that we enjoy. So again, I mean, going back to the growth side of the business, very, very blessed to say that we are absolutely looking at developing more, building more, and acquiring more. And then, like Mary said, I mean, look, creating more entrepreneurs is another way to making sure your economy stays strong. And what another way you can have by having a franchise system when someone else has already made it easy for you. All you have to do is to just come in, join, and invest, and the rest is easy because of the fact that, I mean, the name brings people in. So I think for the millennials and for the people who are willing to take risk, I would say jump in. This is a good time to control your own destiny and get involved in owning your own business.
As we sit here right now, you guys both said something very interesting. I happened to be sitting on a board meeting yesterday morning. As you know, as a lot of people like to blink their eyes and hope 2020 is over already. But in reality, what you guys are both saying, and with a lot of the emerging franchisors out there, is people who have not gone through the recession before, that as they're planning for fourth quarter and 2021, don't be afraid, because it's going to come back. As the vaccine, as we kind of talk about, it's getting closer and closer. We're all crossing our fingers, but you got to be ready for that fourth quarter in 2021, because you are going to find franchisees out there who are some of these jobs will never come back. A lot of people have found out that, you know, they can do it with technology, and there's going to be, but what comes out comes lots of opportunities. Real estate's going to be cheaper out there. You know, I happen to drive by, I was joking around with this, a restaurant that's been around forever, which is part of a big franchise system with a for rent sign out of it. But it's a great location, and someone's going to take it eventually. So, but it sounds like your advice to the people, all these emerging franchisors, is don't be afraid to go out for 2021.
Absolutely not. I mean, you know, I think I am enjoying more, not because the sales is great and the business is awesome, thank God, but I am also enjoying this time more because I have spent the most amount of time with my kids and family. And by the way, Lane, I'm working on my six-pack, have a bet with my daughter that by the end of August, I'm going to have a six-pack. So not bragging about it, but I'm there, almost. So I think one of the other things we are focusing on is to make sure that living in the moment is what we are now training our leadership team at. As like, you know, when you are communicating with someone, whether whoever that individual is, even if it's a team member, live in that moment. Make sure that you're having an eye contact. Make sure that you focus and giving them attention. And I honestly, going back to the kids' side, bike riding with them, wrestling with them, having fun, driving cars, whatever you want to say. But it's the most important time that I think I had in over years and years and years. But it also is giving me a peace of mind and the happiness that's bringing to me. And that happiness is seen by my team as well. And that is totally filtering through the team. And the energy that we are all creating is just amazing. So I think other examples I would say is like we started working out in our own office. We have a decent sized gym here, and playing basketball in the back, you know, doing workout here, bringing our families. Once a period we are doing wine and book. So we give books to our leadership team so that they can read and they can come in and talk about what exactly they think about it, and bringing one of the family members every period just to make sure that they also see what exactly we are doing. Creating a club for our kids to make sure that they get connected. I think it's such a good time to connect or reconnect with the families and bring that synergy, bring that energy back to your business by staying happy and healthy.
Very well said. I enjoyed that, Tab, excuse me. Mary, would love to invite you if you have any thoughts along that vein, but what is your advice to emerging franchisors out there? There's a lot of them on the call today, but any general thoughts on what Tab just said, and then advice to emerging franchisors?
Yeah, Tab made me think about something. You know, there's a difference between being brave and bold. They're both very important. Brave is when you're painted in a corner and you don't have any choice. You're scared to death, but you gotta go. You know, the pandemic started and you're scared, but you gotta move on. Bold is when you make concerted steps and efforts to head in a direction and you bring everyone along with you. And so I would encourage the emerging franchisors to be bold, to look for the fortunes that are made are often made in the recessions and in those type of times, because someone is bold enough to look for, seize the moment, find an opportunity. Every brand out there has that chance for that opportunity. If you're bold means you're willing to change something. Bold means you're willing to look and go, that's not working anymore. Bold means that you're willing to try something and fail maybe. But when you do that, you learn the right things and you take everyone along with you and you boldly go where you need to go.
That's great. Well said. Lane, how would you like to wrap this up, sir?
I mean, look, this was perfect and it was great. And I always like to show, as we all sort of hang out together, that this is all part of a family. And I think a lot of people, the reality check is how other members of the family are making out. And so we can't thank you enough for sharing your experience. We'll probably be back to you periodically, as we always have been. But sharing it in this format is really just so generous of you. And I know you have a million other things to do. And, you know, you're just great, fun people. So I appreciate you doing it. But that's all I have, Ryan.
Beautiful. Thank you both so much for your time. Tab, any final thoughts as we depart here?
I would say, first of all, thank you all for having me a part of this panel, and of course, to be working side by side with Mary. I love Mary the way, she has always been a leader. I admire the practices that she has adapted and the brave and bold. Okay, if you're okay with it, Mary, I would use that example. But I would also say to a lot of fellow businessmen and women out there that, look, if you want to grow, learn how to let go. Learn how to let go of your old habits, adapt, change, like Mary said. If you're a franchisor and if you want to grow and if you do not want to continue to drag from those franchisees who are not aligned with you and who are dragging you down and not doing the right things for the brand, let go. If you're a franchisee, you need to understand that, if you are not aligned, if you think that this is not the brand for you, get out. Move towards the right direction. So letting go, meaning like, focus on what makes most sense for you. Don't get stuck on it. So again, I would still say, if you want to grow, that's the only mindset one should have. There's only two directions you can go. You can go forward or you can go backwards. If you're stuck in the middle, you're going backwards. So I appreciate all of you guys, and thank you very much for having me be a part of this wonderful group.
Well, Tabbassum and Mary, thank you both so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Bye.